Thank you for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist Jerome D. Love. We are committed to teaching you how to build wealth so that you can build your community. At the Black Money Tree, our goal is to empower wealth creation and create economic self-sufficiency in order to empower generations to come. Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never enjoy. Powered by Wells Fargo Bank. Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Hey, this is Jerome D. Love, host of the Black Money Tree Podcast, and I'm super excited to be here for season 2. We got some heavy hitters that's coming up, and we're really excited because we are experiencing a black boom. Boom is the theme of this year's podcast series, and BOOM is an acronym for building our own marketplace. If we're going to build our own marketplace, we're going to need resources. We're going to need money. And the best way, one of the best ways to build resources for our community is through entrepreneurship and through real estate. So the Black Money Tree is committed to providing you resources that's going to help you. We have our book, Closing the Wealth Gap. Go to theblackmoneytree.com. You can get all the information there. Follow us on Instagram, all of that good stuff. But we're really excited about today's guest. We're going to be talking about building our own marketplace. We're going to be talking about building our businesses. But a lot of businesses fail because they're not set up. They're not structured properly. And today we have an attorney, a lawyer. He's also one of my frat brothers. He runs one of the premier African-American law firms in the country based in Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Travis Townsend. Mr. Travis, welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to be here. I'm ready to get this conversation rolling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let's go back before we really get into the entrepreneurship and business building. Let's talk about your past. You're a tremendous entrepreneur. You're a visionary. I mean, you were the president, I believe, the Atlanta Black MBA. You've done so many things. How did you grow up? Were your parents entrepreneurs? What kind of drove you down the path that you're on now?
Yeah. So my folks are just good old blue collar folks. My mom's a nurse and my dad's a city bus driver, right? So just making money, but they always taught me the old school grind it out way. And I'm originally from the Midwest, but they taught me, to go ahead and think out the box, right? And so as a kid, I would find ways to take what I had and try to get it to somebody else for a little more than what it cost me to get, right? It's just basic, whatever I could find, T-shirts, candy bars, anything. If I had an old toy, it's just kind of the way it worked. I figured, look, I'm not using it if somebody else can find value in it and I can get a little change to kind of buy something that I do want. That's kind of where it was. But honestly, I kind of just always been somebody who thought, look, I don't like to follow other people's rules if they don't make sense. Yeah. And in this world, you got to work. But the only way you kind of make the rules and way in the environment in which you make money is to be an entrepreneur. So that kind of is really the core focus is I want to create the environment in which I earn my living.
Yeah, no, I think that's critically important. Now, you kind of talked about selling things and T-shirts. We got to go back to how we met. Let's go back to, I think it was July, maybe August 2000, Dallas, Texas, the Alpha Phi Alpha National Convention. I had just launched my first business. I graduated in 99. For those who don't know, I had a clothing line called Goo Gog's Hip Hop Apparel, and we was blowing up in the South. And I was trying to establish a national presence. And I had my booth. I was selling my stuff. And you came up to my table and you was just like, man, this is dope. This is hot, man. I could sell this. I could move it. And you became my distributor in the Midwest. What was it that, I guess, about Goo Gogs and the message? It sounds like that's just really who you were. What was it that really resonated that made you really want to get out and hustle? And just for the record, you did a phenomenal job. I did shows in California, New York, and people would come up to me and be like, oh, yeah, I seen this. And I'd be like, nah, I ain't never been to Detroit. I never been to Milwaukee. Nah, they was wearing it at this party. And then I was like, man, my man Travis was putting it down, you know. And I remember you would buy them at a wholesale. I would give them to you, and you would make your money. And it was a tremendous experience. Talk a little bit about that.
Listen, the message, right? Like, you can't beat it. Get up, get out, get something. Like, you got a positive message, right? I'm like, hey, let's go, right? And then supporting frat. I was at convention. It's like, man, brothers is out here making it happen every which way. But it just stood out. And then I think you were genius in, like, you had the colors that were attractive to different Design 9, right? So it hit me immediately. I was like, oh, I could take this back. First, I'm going to hit the Greeks. And then I'm going to hit outside of the college campus community. And I did. I grabbed a few, went back. As soon as I hit the yard, folks like, yo, I was rocking them. And some of my frat brothers was rocking them, chapter brothers. And it was just easy. They were flying. People were buying them. I was running out. I had to re-up. So I was like, oh, yeah, we're gonna do this. But it just hit me. Your energy. I mean, obviously, the person you are today, you've always been that person. Anybody is going to be drawn to somebody with a vision, with something that's positive, and something just made sense. So I was like, look, I'm doing this. I don't know if you cool with it, but would you let me do this? And you were like, hey, whatever, man. It was like, it was just magic. And to come full circle today just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You know, you reminded me so much of me. You ain't really asked. You were like, man, I'm going to take it. You know what I'm saying? And that's the way I operate. You just made it happen. But Google's for me, and sometimes people think success in business is about forming or following a certain path and it's going to work out. But I learned everything OJT with Google's, everything that I'm using today. I came up with the concept. I put together the shirts, and I'm like, how I'm going to sell them? And I had a black one with red and white. And the Delta started buying them. Then I said, I'm an alpha. Let me put some black and gold on there. Then all the bros started buying it. And then the U of H bros, we go down, we doing parties, everybody wearing there. Then, of course, the AKA, we want something in pink and green. We did theirs in pink and green. Now, the problem that I did find with that was then it became identified with those Greeks. So now your regular people that would want to wear a red and white one couldn't wear it because the Deltas was wearing them. So then I started having to get other colors and inventories. So it was so many lessons that I learned through that. But it's amazing, man. So talk about your law firm. What made you become a lawyer? When did that decision happen, and when did you start your law firm?
Well, I knew I wanted to become a lawyer as early as like 8th grade. I remember people asking me, what do you want to do? And that just kind of came from, it's a little bit distant from what I do today. It was the typical sort of, I was a mouthpiece. I had quick retorts. I was kind of a defender. I would defend other classmates to teachers and authority figures like, hey, you in trouble. I'm like, well, I don't know, Mr. So-and-so, you kind of said this. And all he was doing was, and they, they get kind of annoyed, but they also was like, all right. And then it just kind of hit me like being an advocate was something that I was good at and passionate about. And so lawyer just kind of made sense. And I thought that I was going to grow up and become a civil rights lawyer and kind of fight for the man, fight against the man for the little people. And so that's kind of what drove me. I knew I was going to be a lawyer my whole life. And then when I went to law school, I found a whole lot of other folks who were passionate about helping the little people and kind of fight against injustices. And everybody was either, a civil rights lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, something like that. But then one of my mentors in law school came back from her summer job, and she was telling me she was getting into mergers and acquisitions. Now, I knew her to be committed to the community to this day, one of the biggest community folks you'll ever see. And I was kind of like, wow, like I don't know what that is. And then two, tell me about it, because how I wouldn't see you. I thought you was going to do this. And she kind of hit me to like the fact that one of the biggest ways to help our community is to empower us through business understanding, business law. And there are a lot of folks already doing the civil rights thing. There are a lot of folks already doing the labor and employment, people getting fired, mistreated. There are a lot of people doing the criminal justice thing. But there are like none of us who are helping our community get into business and be supported from people who can actually understand where they come from, have some compassion about sort of the knowledge gap, and then care more about their success. And that changed my whole trajectory into saying, okay, I want to get into mergers and acquisitions in business and help people do deals, because the money is where a lot of the power and the things that support legal defense funds come from big businesses, right? And the more we have individuals with money, disposable income, to support advocacy groups, to support conversations about injustice, the more we're going to move forward. So that's kind of how I got into that space. That, and aside from the fact that you can make a great living being a business lawyer, a mergers and acquisitions and corporate finance lawyer.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I tell people that all the time. I want to be a success in business, and I ain't talking just making $200,000-$300,000 a year. I want major money. Why?
That's right.
I mean, you can only spend so much. I can only spend so much money, but I want to be that person that when someone needs help, you can go to them and support their business, give that scholarship. Someone who's unjustly accused of a crime, and you can support their legal fund and things of that nature. And we need people like that in our community in order to build our community. Who's going to give us a second chance more than we are? So we got to be in a position to do that. So let's talk a little bit about business structure and growth. You do mergers and acquisitions. From my experience, and you tell me, I don't know if most of your clientele is African American or whatever, but a lot of our businesses, we set them up as really jobs that we own. And when it comes time to retirement and or cashing out, I want to do something else, we can't merge or sell our business because they're not really structured properly. Talk a little bit about that, or what do you see out there?
Well, I see exactly the same thing, which is one of the things I spend a lot of education on, educating clients, client prospects. But to your point, I'll do you one further. I will say, for anybody that's listening out there and they say, look, I want to be my own boss, so I'm going to start a business. If you think you want to be your own boss, then one, that's wrong. You need to be the boss of people who are institutionalizing your business. If I want to be my own boss and have a business, they don't really go to, I want to be the person who runs a business for people, who manages and leads people who are going to institutionalize the operation that I have. And so when you go out, say you're at a job, I always compare yourself, you're at a job and you got a supervisor and they have an HR department and they have operations department and they have a marketing department, and you are a subject matter expert. In that job, your job is you come in and you work on your subject matter, and that's all you got to do. Now, when you go out, you actually make things worse for yourself if you don't have the concept of institutionalizing. Because now, if you're a single employee business, now you got to be the subject matter expert, human resources, marketing, all that. And you're probably getting paid just enough or as much for the first few years. So really what you did was you took a step back. And if your plan is to do that for 20 years until retirement, that's still not the way to go. You would have been better off getting a 401k, letting somebody else cover those other activities. But if you're going to do it, you got to get out and you got to replicate yourself. You got to institutionalize systems. You got to put things in place such that when you step away from the business, whether it's for a 3-day weekend or a 10-day vacation overseas, or when it's time to sell or retire, it can go on without you. And that is how your mind has to be thinking. But unfortunately, a lot of folks, they get out and they say, well, it's cool because I get to decide when I get up. I get to decide when I go in, go home. And this is great, but they're stressing. And every day, if they're not in the office, if they're not taking the phone calls, if they're not answering the client's questions, if they're not looking at the product, it's not going to work. And that is not a business. That is a big job. That's 5-6 jobs in one. I try to tell folks, get in there and build yourself an actual business with people in it so that you can transition out. And I can help you do that by, selling via an exit, selling, substantially all the assets, or merging with an acquirer who sees what you've built and they know that they can grow it, take it on. They're going to pay you a nice sum. You can go off to an island and relax for the rest of your days.
Yeah. I tell people building a business is about creating systems that other people run. And I think that one of the things that is, I don't have no research or anything, but one of the things that's happened to us through the African-American pilgrimage to the United States, let's just say, we were taught our value through physical labor. So sometimes if we're not out doing everything and making everything happen, we don't feel as though we're working. But it is work to sit back and strategize. Okay, I need this person here, this person there. that person there, and I'm going to put a person here, And I will say it was interesting. We were awarded a $12 million contract from the county during COVID, and we provided over 700,000 meals utilizing about 28 restaurants. That catapulted me. I'd been trying to get out of doing all the work, but it forced me out. There's no way, So I had to sit back and set up systems, manage stuff. I was the customer service guy. I'm the one that goes and does the presentations, cut the checks, and things of that nature. But there were times I would feel like, man, am I really doing work? Because it was like I was used to doing everything. And that for me, that was what kind of jolted me out of that mindset and helped me to see beyond doing everything. It's kind of like the book, The E-Myth. I don't know if you read The E-Myth.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That book talks about exactly what you were just saying. So let me ask you this. So business structure, most people seem to go with LLC. All my business is LLC. I've heard that LLC is the best. What's your thoughts on the proper business structure? And I know proper is that's probably the wrong word. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do. What do you think about business structure for a starting business owner? What do you think is the proper business structure? And really, what is the value of incorporating, if you will?
Well, so you hit it. There's no one particular, proper business structure. It all depends on your objectives, the parties involved, how many people are participating, and kind of like what you care about. But the main reason why we create business entities, like legal structures, is to protect ourselves from liability, right? Like our individual, you build wealth, you're going to build things, and you build them in various ways. What you want to do, the first thing is make sure that the thing like your home, the things that you live off of, the things that provide for your family and take care of you, that they're not at risk because you're putting yourself out there in front of the world. The reason why business entities exist is to encourage people to go out and produce value and produce commerce and job creating engines without having to worry about losing the shirt off their back and their homes, right? And so Congress created these business structures so that you would be encouraged to go out and take a risk. Because when you go out, when you're in your house, and you're dealing with your family, your risk is limited to them. And then when you go outside and you deal with the handful of people you met, at a cocktail reception, your risk is limited to them. But when you are holding yourself out for business, especially now, the world is small. The entire world can be a customer. They can also be a liability. They can also be a plaintiff. They can also be somebody dissatisfied. And so you want to have some structure that creates a barrier between you, your personal, and what you're doing out there in the world. Now, with respect to kind of just basic startups, if you're an individual and you're trying to get off the ground, LLC is a great vehicle because it is really tailorable, right? That's one of the reasons why they created it. Corporations has a set sort of framework you got to operate under, but LLCs are popular because you can kind of create the universe. The rules in which you engage your partners with, the rules you engage with investors, and things like that. And so how you have meetings and all that. LLCs say, if you have an LLC, you create an operating agreement, you are the master of your universe drafted out. Corporations are generally like, look, there's a long-standing body of corporate law that says you can only do this, you must always do this, you have to do this. There are certain things you can contract to restrict, but there are sort of baseline standards that you have to engage in based on the corporate law. So that's the reason why LLCs are extremely popular. Generally speaking, people always have this question. I get this all the time. Well, shouldn't I be a Delaware corporation because I'm taking on investors? I always tell folks, look, you need to be a basic standing entity in the space that you operate in currently physically, because forming in another place in anticipation of multi-million-dollar investments is a waste. You will get, though, when it comes time for that, trust me, if there's a multi-million-dollar investor, they're going to tell you where to form. They might want you in Wyoming. They might want you in Las Vegas. And if you want their money, you're going to form in Nevada. You're going to do whatever they say. So just form where you're at, probably an LLC, grow it, and then modify it. You can always transform your corporation or your corporate entity as you grow.
So let me ask one last question. And on the protection side, I have an LLC. Most of my business is in real estate. And I had a fatality on one of my properties once. So, of course, everybody's coming for the money. And they basically, I think, deposition or whatever, they were looking for money, basically. Even though I had that corporation, not only did they come after that corporation, they were looking at all my other corporations and even trying to come after me. Now, ultimately, they accepted the money that the insurance offered or whatever. But from that, I kind of said, well, what's the point of this thing? If they coming after me personally and my other businesses that aren't even real estate related, but they looked up and found everything, what would be your response to that?
So let me just tell you, folks say if you set up a certain way, it doesn't stop people from going after you. I mean, people can find. I don't even have no issue with you. I could file a lawsuit and serve you tomorrow for anything I want. Now, whether or not I'm gonna be successful is, I gotta actually have facts. So a plaintiff, and there's so many lawyers that the ones that kind of give us the bad reputation. All it takes is one clown lawyer to be like, look, I'm gonna file a complaint and I'm gonna sue everybody. I'm gonna sue your grandmama and I'm gonna sue this. You have lawyers that will do that. But the point is, what would happen when it went to a jury, and what does the law say, and what would the judge permit? You have situations, you probably see it and probably don't even realize it. How many times you've seen some big monumental judgment in the news, and it's like, oh man, they gave them a judgment for $50 billion, but then the court reduced it to $450,000 because there's a cap on sort of tort damages, right? What would happen in the situation if you're properly structured, both in the actual entity and the layers in which you separate your businesses? They can try to name you personally and name your other business all they want, but your liability is going to be limited to the way you've set yourself up to that entity and the assets set up in that entity. So that's really the whole point. Like, somebody can come after you. Don't be discouraged because they put your name and a million other defendants on the complaint. The real point is what happens when the law is actually decided. You probably would have been fine.
Yeah. But it's quite expensive to prove that you're fine. But with that said, our time is up. I want to give you an opportunity. Talk about your firm or give us a website, phone number, social media. Where can we find you for those that are looking at starting a business, maybe trying to sell a business or whatever? Let us know where we can find you.
Sure. So we're headquartered in Atlanta, Ms. Townsend Lockett. But we have offices in Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, California, Chicago, Illinois. But because we're a business lawyer, if you're doing transactions anywhere in the States and abroad, we can assist you. We're not limited locally, geographically. And our services range from mergers, acquisitions, corporate finance, real estate development combinations. We also have a business litigation component. And if you're an inventor, innovator, or disruptor, we help file patents. If you have a brand, a fantastic brand, but you need it to be protected and expanded, trademarks, we cover sort of the full gambit of major business operations. Our clientele range from Fortune 500 companies to mom and pop, but our sweet spot is those growth companies that's been doing well, got great revenues, and looking to go to the next level. And we're generally a community-oriented law firm, so we're happy to assist, obviously, from a pay standpoint, but we answer questions. We try to educate folks who are trying to grow themselves and grow their businesses. So we look to be as supportive as we can in the community. So I'm just excited to be doing what I've been practicing for 18 years. My firm's been around for 12, and I just love what I do. And I love it more when my clients are successful and they're making money and they're doing the things that they want to do. And
social media?
I'm sorry. Yes, social media. Townsend Lockett at Townsend Lockett will get you to all of our social medias. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Instagram, just at Townsend Lockett. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm at The Real Trav Town.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Travis. It's been a pleasure having you here, 1906. And thank you for all of you that tuned in to the Black Money Tree podcast, where we're committed to helping you build wealth. Today's episode, we talked about entrepreneurship and legal structure, but we have so many other resources on the blackmoneytree.com, real estate investing. So make sure you check us out. Follow us at the Black Money Tree on Instagram, Facebook, and make sure you join us for the Boom 20-year celebration of Texas Black Expo, building our own marketplace in Houston, Texas. Go to the website, texasblackexpo.com. We got all the information, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Black Money Tree Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast. Don't forget to like and share this video. And if you want more content like this, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you next time.